Welcome to day 3 of the St. Louis Regional Freightways virtual Freight Week STL 2022. I'm Mary Lamy, the Executive Vice President of Multimodal Enterprises for Bi-State Development, which includes the St. Louis Regional Freightway as one of its enterprises. Freight Week STL is being held in partnership with the Inland Marine Expo hosted in downtown St. Louis. Yesterday, we learned about the St. Louis region's role in one of the world's most comprehensive port networks and how a new container-on-vessel port being developed in Herculaneum, Missouri will be part of that network. In today's first session, we'll focus on Union Pacific's railroad's dedicated rail service to the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, the largest U.S. port complex. You'll also learn about the operations of the UP Intermodal Yard in Dupo, Illinois, and the capacity UP has to serve more customers. Before we introduce our panelists, we'd like to start with thanking our sponsors. This year's presenting sponsors include Burns McDonald, Castle Contracting, Ameren, Illinois, the Jerry Costello Group, and Crawford Murphy and Tilley. Our supporting sponsors are the Boeing Center, Design 9, and the Hauser Group. Associate sponsors for this year include the Southern Illinois Builders Association and Southern Illinois Construction Advancement Program, Terracon, and CDI. Our panelist today is Elise Gosch, Assistant Vice President of Intermodal Sales for Union Pacific Railroad. Welcome, Elise, and let's start with a quick introduction of your background and your organization.
Thanks, Mary. My name is Elise Gosch. I am the AVP of Sales in the premium team here at Union Pacific. So what does that mean? I have about 22 different sales reps that cover all North America. And we deal with domestic intermodal customers and international intermodal customers. And so we're responsible for the freight that moves all throughout our different interstates and byways and trains. And a lot of it makes its way into the St. Louis area. So glad to be here and looking forward to today's panel.
All right, great. So Elise, let's discuss Union Pacific services to the Port of LA and Long Beach. How has UP adjusted to the containerized cargo congestion and other supply chain issues?
Great question. And I think it's something that anybody that has supply chain in their title has been front and center. We used to be the boring people at parties, and now everybody wants to know and opine on what we do and ask questions. And what's great is we know how important the supply chain is to our economy and our country, and we are front and center. So at Union Pacific, what we are doing and have been doing throughout what we are hearing as the supply chain crisis is making sure that we're agile with our resources. Every new challenge and every new day brings a new challenge, and we're making sure that we are flexible, agile, and are providing resources where they need to be. For example, last year we were at the height of the intermodal kind of congestion at the Port of LA and Long Beach. We moved to 24/7 operations. We opened up 2 additional ramps that had been previously shuttered to make sure that we're using full capacity in Chicago and Houston. And then finally, we inserted well cars into our network to make sure that we could handle the additional amount of freight. Those are just a couple examples of what we did then. And now here we are in 2022, and there's still a lot of questions on what the future looks like and what the supply chain looks like. We know that the intermodal network and the rail network is not what our customers need and demand of us, and we are putting resources. We are hiring over 1,300 individuals to make sure that we have resources available to handle the influx of traffic that wants to move throughout North America. Finally,
so would you consider those the lessons learned?
Oh yeah, I think everybody in the supply chain learned a lot in the last 18 months, and they're going, how do I make this better? What do I do different now? Some things that we're doing different now, specifically on the international intermodal side. And to give people some background and context of what I mean when I say international intermodal, when we order, something from China, a pair of shoes, a nice blouse, that business comes over on an ocean carrier, on a ship, and an intermodal container. Then typically what we see is about 1/3 of the volume that comes into the LA Long Beach port complex is consumed just by those individuals in LA. Then you have about a third of it that stays in an international intermodal container, a 40-foot container, and goes all the way into St. Louis, into the Dupo Terminals yard, and is consumed by homeowners in Villa Grove. Then you have a third of it that what we call transloads into a domestic 53-foot container. That's kind of a typical balance that we see in a given year, a third, a third, a third. In 2021, we saw that dramatically shift to more domestic intermodal shipments. And so for some people that feels good, for some people it's just different. And we at Union Pacific like to handle all of that. But when things traditionally move in one way and then they suddenly shift, our infrastructure as a company and as a country really isn't built for that. And so I like to use the analogy, let's make that real and concrete. That Lucille Ball episode where if all this stuff is coming because a bunch of ocean carriers can bring a ton of freight and then the railroads 24/7 can keep moving freight. Well, the destination points and with the labor shortage of where we were, couldn't process at the same rate and the same scale. So you have, again, that Lucille Ball episode where those chocolates were just coming off of that conveyor belt left and right, and we weren't ready for it. So when you make those major shifts of transload freight to versus international freight, that conveyor belt is really shifting, and that's what can happen. So we learned that, and we're working proactively with customers and shippers for advanced planning, so we have the right conveyor spade to process that traffic as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Okay, so now with that said, how is technology playing a role in keeping freight moving?
Great question. Technology is something as a railroad we've invested heavily on. Sometimes people think, oh, you're a 150-year-old company, you're not very tech savvy. In fact, Union Pacific is tech first. In the international intermodal space, what that looks like is what we've called something like a port optimizer with the Port of LA. It's taking data that wouldn't have been available to us prior, and now we have 14 days advance notice of what's hitting the ships that are then going to be consumed by rail. What does that mean? Our operating team can make sure that we have well cars at the ready because we have that much advanced planning. Another thing that we are doing proactively is looking at the beneficial cargo, the actual owner of that freight, and getting visibility. Surprisingly to you, it wasn't a typical thing that was shared, and we are working in 2022 to make that available. So then we have a pile of customer A, a pile of customer B, and a pile of customer C freight sitting there ready to go. So we can just be much more efficient with our operations and get people their freight when they need it. The other piece of technology I'd like to highlight is what we're doing at the ramps. And the reason I think that's so important is that drivers are one of the most important individuals in our supply chain. And as we know, we're going through a driver shortage. It is so important that people get in and out of our ramps as fast, as efficiently as possible. So we're spending a large amount of capital in that space to improve our technology and our gating technology so people can just roll through our gate, get in, get the container, and get back out. And it would be an ideal goal for each dray carrier that goes in and out of our ramps to get one extra turn a day. And that just means efficiency for our entire supply chain.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, help us understand conversations regarding the Port of LA and Long Beach encouraging importers to ship more of their volume to intermodal rail to increase cargo velocity in the port complex and UP's role. What exactly is inland point intermodal traffic?
Yeah, so that inland point IPI, intermodal traffic, was what I was talking about earlier, where that 40-foot or 20-foot container comes off the ship, goes directly to our rail, and then goes all the way inland to a St. Louis or a Chicago or a Houston, and then finally gets onto a truck and gets to its final destination. And I was talking about that earlier, that kind of third split is typically what we see. It's ebbed and flowed. At the height, a year ago, it was at much higher transload, so it transloads and less IPI. And then it ratcheted down. So I think it's very public information, but a lot of the railroads saw IPI freight double-digit decreases in fourth quarter of 2021. And what it takes is conversations with BCOs to say, hey, the domestic infrastructure isn't built for all of this. We need to have that healthy mix of the international freight and the domestic transload freight moving in lockstep, so our infrastructure, our chassis, our dray carriers, everybody can handle the freight effectively. So we work in lockstep with our ports, we work with the terminal operators, we work with the dray carriers. We all own a piece of the supply chain, and it takes all of us moving in the same, I guess going back to that conveyor belt, the same speed in order for us to hand off to be really slick. So that takes constant communication. We have daily, actually hourly calls with port operators to make sure that what we have available to take all the freight coming our way is being shipped. And those are just some ways that we work together to make sure that we have a healthy blend and balance. Now, we are definitely seeing those IPI loads and that go up. And what Union Pacific needs to do and all railroads need to do is spin our assets faster so we can handle the amount of freight. And that's exactly what Union Pacific is focusing on right now.
So tell us about the Dupo Intermodal Terminals capabilities, available capacity, and recent infrastructure improvements at that facility.
Yeah, absolutely. Dupo is one of our 31 intermodal ramps that Union Pacific operates and moves traffic, whether it's in that international box or that domestic box that I was talking about. And I pulled the stats. We have a lift count is a type of number that we use in the intermodal space a lot. The Dupo Yard has a lift count of 175,000. We'll get you and your I shouldn't say readers, you and your participants of your Freight Week, a good visual of that. We've spent a lot of time and information on giving maps, something so simple. But again, when I talk about that driver experience that we're focusing on, we've done a lot of work updating our maps as we've done infrastructure projects. It's really important for us to have great signage. If we reference, hey, your container's in the red lot, we want to know and have it be very obvious where the red lot is. So we'll make sure that we get those information to your constituents there. We've done a lot of work on that. Now, other things that we've done in the Dupo area when it comes to infrastructure is the Merchants Bridge. And that's just a great example of public-private investment working together to improve fluidity, improve safety, which is a core tenet of all of ours in the transportation space. And a huge amount of infrastructure and investment has gone into that, over $222 million. And we're looking at early fourth quarter 2022 completion of that. And that will just add a lot of fluidity, again, help safety for the communities and for the railroads that use that Merchants Bridge. That's just one example in the St. Louis area where this investment will add value.
Okay, very good. All right, what can you tell us about the scheduled Dupo rail service and its role with the containerized cargo shipments?
Again, I talked about our 31 different intermodal ramps, and some just have international freight, some have domestic freight, some have both. Dupo is one of those yards that has both. So optionality is key. And Dupo positions itself well that it can take both types of services. So we actually have 9 different geographic locations that come in and out of Dupo. Examples, we already talked about LA Long Beach. We have Seattle, PNW, Tacoma area, Brooklyn, Portland area. You got Lathrop, Oakland, Salt Lake City, just to name a few. The other thing I think it's important, and we pride ourselves on optionality, we have 7-day-a-week service. And so, that provides the best optionality for customers, no matter when they need to get their freight to and from the St. Louis region. We've got a train that can get it there. So optionality is key, and this intermodal terminal does provide it.
All right, so what do you see as the value of the Dupo interchange reconstruction project and first mile, last mile improvements? And how specifically will this benefit your customers?
Yeah. Now, this is one that's a little bit out of my purview of control from sales perspective. We have a team that focuses on this, but going back again to really address anything that improves the driver experience in and out. So if that egress into the facility is better and safer, it will be a better experience for our drivers. And we're on board for anything that makes things more safe and more efficient.
All right, very good. And that's where I probably should have explained more of that scope. But I think one of the benefits is it's going to allow truck traffic to avoid going to the downtown area and have more of a direct route into your facility. And there's also opportunities for closing some of the at-grade crossings, which helps with safety. Okay, so let's change gears and let's talk about demand. Demand for industrial real estate nationally and within the St. Louis region is at a premium. Does Union Pacific have available land at the Dupo Yard? And how can the region market the Dupo Yard's capabilities and capacity and leverage its value to the industrial real estate market?
You're hitting it right on the head. Location, location, location. And when you are near an intermodal facility, it is just that much more advantageous for you as a shipper or a receiver to maximize your transportation options and to reduce your spend and to improve your footprint with the environment. So we are a strong proponent of locating as close as you possibly can to an intermodal ramp. Now, we have a team that actually focuses specifically on that. It's our industrial development team. We'll get your team some contacts, but Eric Watkins is an expert in that field. Aaron Evans specifically has the St. Louis region. So they're currently evaluating the St. Louis area near Dupo to do exactly what you just did. So really, the great thing is don't wait. If you want to make a connection now and you have an interest, we have a team ready to help. And we can proactively help once our team gets done with our evaluation of the St. Louis market.
Okay, we're looking forward to building those relationships. Okay, tell us about job opportunities in the rail industry and Union Pacific's role in Southwestern Illinois.
Well, Southwestern Illinois is a big UP area. Jennifer Ball is a senior recruiter in your area, and we'll make sure that anybody that's interested and wants a good, solid paying job with Union Pacific Railroad, we make a good contact with you. We're also proud of our partnerships. We've been very open and public about our goal to diversify our workforce. We want to reflect the communities that we serve, and we are going to increase our women in operating. We're also going to increase our diversity in our operating ranks. And so in order to do that, we believe good people know good people. And so we have referral programs. If you have anybody that is looking for a rewarding career, by all means, again, I'll make sure that you have the contacts in our WR contacts, our workforce resources contacts, to make that connection happen.
Okay, Elise, is there anything else we haven't touched on that our viewers today should know, or any final comments?
The last thing I'd like to say is Union Pacific is committed to, one, moving more intermodal freight. We truly believe it is the most safe, most efficient way to move freight across our United States. And we are highly, highly committed to growing our intermodal footprint. We've been very public about the infrastructure and the capacity that we're spending. In fact, we've publicly stated over $600 million of capital just in 2022 alone. And we're going to add over 1 million lifts to the intermodal franchise. So Union Pacific is committed to moving intermodal freight, and we know and hope that those in the St. Louis area want to move that with us.
Thank you, Elise. It's fascinating to learn how UP is playing a key role in keeping freight moving during the challenges that have plagued the industry over the past couple of years, and to hear how your organization continues to innovate and adapt to improve the nation's supply chain going forward. We look forward to continuing and helping that growth at your facility with an emphasis in Dupo, and we thank you for joining us today to provide this excellent overview of UP's operations. I'd also like to give a final thank you to our sponsors for FreightWeekSTL 2022. Their support makes it possible for us to continue to deliver the great content that is hallmark to this annual conference. Freight Week continues today with our 11:15 a.m. session focused on significant investments underway at 3 Midwest ports and other infrastructure improvements being studied by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that will facilitate an increase in barge services and deliver cost efficiencies that drive profitability for the industry. We hope you can join us and encourage you to share our links of any Freight Week content with others who may be interested.